Thank you. Can you hear me okay if this is here and I'm not holding it? Okay, good. Back in the back. Okay, great. Well, welcome. I'm glad that you're all here, and I'm going to be talking about something that's completely different from what we were just speaking about. And James, you did an amazing job with that presentation. It was wonderful. There you are. Thank you so much. So our time is limited, so I'm going to get right to it, just like he did. The question today is extraterrestrial healing and regeneration. Is it for today? Is it real? You know, so what I'm going to present to you is my personal experience, what I have lived through. I've had contact. My family has had contact. We're looking at 70 years in total in my family. And my experiences go from the time I was 5 years old until just recently. So it is still a part of my life. So I want to talk a little bit about all that. But you tell me what you think after I share my personal experience with you, if you think aliens are really negative, or perhaps there is something good there as well. But I've personally never had a negative experience myself with anything extraterrestrial. I have seen them as somewhat friendly. Now, does that mean that they're all friendly and that that's the way it goes? Not necessarily, you know. So over the years, there have been many stories of aliens, healings, you know, that have been written about, which have afflicted humans from a plethora of illnesses, and many of those accounts are hard to fathom for most of us. And it makes one wonder about the authenticity of the claims. You know, are these things really real? Today I intend to share with you all not just an experience, but physical evidence, maybe even proof of one such healing, which is my healing. So again, good afternoon. I'm glad you're all here. It's good to see such a nice crowd here supporting John and what he does for MUFON, Pennsylvania. I trust you all have enjoyed what we just heard. That was so interesting, and I have to amen a lot of it. You know, some of it is stuff that kind of goes, you know, okay, let's deal with that. It's a little out there on the fringe, but it's all very interesting. Anyway, I've titled my presentation Supernatural, Extraterrestrial Healing and Regeneration. So, but first a little bit about me. I believe, well, that's actually me once upon a time. I know I don't look like that anymore. I believe we are spiritual beings on a human journey. I really do. And I've had strange happenings all my life, like I said earlier, since I was 5 years old, and I've heard many strange things, which are very normal to me. I've heard audible messages. I believe they were from God many times since my childhood. I've seen angels in the room with me, and also unknowns. I've seen many of those, as well as visions. I've had abductions, I've had my healing, full-bodied apparitions, which led me into demonology to make sure that I could control these things that were affecting me and my life. And also, I've had a near-death experience. Also, a bizarre paranormal experiences that I've had over the years, and these have all been quite normal, actually, to me, each one of them. So my family has been, like I mentioned, a part of extraterrestrial interactions for over 70 years. My oldest brother, Phil, who was in the military, from the 1940s, starting when he was 9 years old, he was contacted. And he never, ever spoke about it. My mother, from the 1960s, while on her houseboat on the Gulf of Mexico with her husband, they both experienced USOs, which are underwater crafts, many times. And myself, since the 1970s, while coming home late from work one night after I had several other sightings as well, but then again with my son, Joshua, in 2012, while on a mother-son date night, we had a very profound shape-shifting craft. 3 lights turned into a triangle and went down into the water of Sawgrass Lake. That made him an instant believer. He always doubted me, and once that happened to him, it was now a new world for him. So 4 generations that we're aware of so far. And I don't pretend to have all the answers on why all these things happen and why extraterrestrials choose family groups to interact with. But until my experience in 1979, no one in my family knew about the other members' experiences. I was led in a very strange way to MUFON. I feel as though I was chosen for this particular reason within the family, to connect all of us together and bring awareness to each other about what was happening. My mother was always too afraid. She worked for Honeywell Aerospace, as did I. I worked for Honeywell in the 70s, and my sister as well. And my mother had said to me, please never discuss what has happened to us. And I never did. So for 29 years, I never spoke of any of the things that ever happened to us. So once I had my first experience in '79, and I shared it with my mother, that is when she confessed to me for the first time about her involvement with cylindrical crafts that would shoot up out of the water in the Gulf of Mexico. And that was really mind-blowing for me, because it showed me that I was not the only one. And then afterwards, I had joined MUFON, and my brother, who lived in Satellite Beach, Florida, I was actually presenting at a MUFON meeting in Satellite Beach, and he, for the first time, heard me share what had happened to me, and he came to me and told me what had happened to him. So, you know, that was very interesting. And then, of course, Josh was with me when I had the mother-son date night. So today I want to speak to you about a topic that has captivated the human imagination for decades, along with a much pondered question about alien healing. So what if alien healings were for everyone? And while it might seem like a far-fetched idea, there is evidence to suggest that extraterrestrial beings have the ability to heal human ailments, and some that we have even yet to discover. So what if it was made available to us? That's what I want to look at. What is possible with our off-world visitors? There have been numerous reports of people who have claimed to have been cured of serious illnesses or injuries all over the globe after an encounter with aliens. And these stories range from people who have been abducted and subjected to bizarre medical procedures, to those who have been visited by beings of unknown origins and who have healed them with simply just a touch. Numerous cases of alien healings have happened over the course of time, far too many to discuss today. From Argentina to Florida and the French Alps and beyond, reports are made by credible sources such as MDs, police officers, clergy, military, nurses, and scientists, some of them being healed from cancers to developing new teeth at the age of 73, and the list goes on and on. There are literally a myriad of cases and types of healings by grays, tall whites, light beams, wands, telepathic healings, and other methods. Many healings happened while people were taken up into the craft, or simply from hovering crafts or alien appearances. The extraterrestrials have many options when healing is on their agenda. One such instant occurred when an Argentinian professor and private pilot was visited by strange humanoids while in his home. He was amazed when the ETs told him that they were there to heal him. Another such case occurred on August 7th, 1989. Real estate broker Katharina Wilson from Portland, Oregon, was injured by a nearby lightning strike while on vacation in Pensacola, Florida. She knew she had been injured by the strike, but decided to wait until morning, hoping that what had happened to her would just heal by itself. But that night, Katharina was taken aboard a UFO. She woke up to find herself lying on a table, suffering from excruciating chest pains. She observed in amazement gray-type aliens who were cutting a square hole into her chest and then attaching a black mechanism to this hole. So let me just point out here, not only are they doing this, but they have other things that they place within the human, other things that they use, as did happen in my experiences, as you'll find. So they're using something, this little black mechanism. that they put in this hole on her. When the pain became particularly intense, the aliens telepathically told her, "We are repairing your heart. You'll be okay now." And you know, it doesn't sound like they're so sinister all of a sudden. Well, while I was not on a craft when my healing occurred, like some others, an extraterrestrial did come to me personally and performed my healing in my very own bedroom. Extraterrestrials truly are not limited as human surgeons are or medical staff. They obviously don't require a sterile environment. So we must approach this healing subject with caution and with an open mind. They're very different, but we cannot deny the potential that lies within its secrets. Similarly, there are reports of people who have been cured of different forms of cancers after being visited by aliens, as well as those who have experienced miraculous recoveries from serious injuries, cuts, and burns, as well as organ injuries, all after encounters with extraterrestrials. While these stories may seem too good to be true, they cannot be simply dismissed by us, okay? They're not hoaxes, they're not delusions. These things have actually happened. People have been healed. As there is often physical and medical evidence like mine to support it. As I'm going to share with you today, I'm moved to share my healing with you as I feel I can shed some light on this extremely enigmatic, life-changing procedure that I endured, which is my alien healing. I've come to understand that it was advanced technology that allowed them to diagnose and treat my illness and medical misfortune that human surgeons were unable to even detect. I do believe that what happened to me happened because of the stress, the anxiety, and so many other things that I was under from having lived a life with extraterrestrials intervening in my life. And at the time this was happening to me, I didn't know about MUFON. I didn't understand what was really happening. You know, I was a Christian girl. I did not believe in extraterrestrials. I thought they were comic book entertainment. So, you know, it was really hard for me to wrap my mind around all of that. So it appears that they had discovered cures for diseases and organ repairs that we're still struggling to understand. Alternatively, it could be that the aliens themselves possess some kind of innate healing ability to detect the issues that we still can't. You've probably heard about cats and dogs who sometimes are very sensitive to people with cancers or illnesses. And it'll happen in one area of the body or another. And those animals will come up to that person and lay right on that area and purr, or the dog will just lay there and comfort the person as they're going through whatever they're going through. So it seems that the extraterrestrials have the ability, like they do, and it was the only thing I could think of to compare what had been going on. It's sad that the cats and the dogs couldn't help us like the extraterrestrials actually can. Wouldn't that be nice? But they can comfort us. However, our off-world neighbors are able to do this, and this is an interesting concept. Of course, the idea of alien healing raises many questions and concerns. If aliens have the ability to heal us, why haven't they done so on a larger scale? And what are the implications of relying on extraterrestrial beings to cure our ailments? Again, these are complex questions that do not have easy answers. However, I do believe that the concept of alien healing is one that's worth exploring further. After all, if there is even the slightest chance that aliens could help us cure any disease that we as a human race are struggling with, then what is its possibility? You know, we can't afford to ignore this. So this is why I take this particular perspective as I look at my own situation. What if we were to unlock the secrets of the cosmos and discover a new form of healing that could change our lives forever? The possibilities are endless, and the journey is just beginning. It's all so very interesting, isn't it? This is a subject for those with an open mind and a passion to understand. My story, this all started, The reason I'm doing my notes, by the way, is because I have to know where to click for my, for my next thing here. In the year 2000, I had a surgery due to 4 years where I suffered greatly with a Crohn's colitis, extremely rare diagnosis. And it was causing my body to rot, literally, internally. And this came with the full effects of a horrific stench, which I couldn't even stand. And you know, I had to work through this time, and I lived with all kinds of scented things just to hang around me and be around me and spray around me. I mean, that's how pathetic this disease was. It was really very difficult for me. My large intestine was rotting, and I bled constantly. Every time I used the restroom, I would fill a toilet with blood. And this went on for 4 years. I was taking all kinds of medications that the doctors were giving me, and nothing was helping. Sorry to share all of that, but that's the truth. So for the better part of 2 straight years, while suffering unbelievable bone-shaking pain, I was told by my doctor finally that I must have surgery quickly, that it looked like it was going into a cancerous state, and it would eventually happen. And he had said to me I had about a month, and you know, because of all the blood work and all the different things that were coming through in my tests, he said, Teri, you're dangerously ill, and you've got to have a surgery right straight away. So I agreed to the surgery only after interviewing 7 surgeons, MDs, for second opinions. I wanted to make sure this was true, and they all agreed I needed the surgery, and immediately. So the entire removal of my large intestine, which is called a subtotal colectomy, and they all agreed, you know, you need it right now, so I did it. It was an extremely difficult 8.5-hour life-saving surgery that had no guarantees. I was told I might not make it, I might. I was very ill, sepsis was always a problem, all these other things were problematic, but I had to just say, well, I'm okay, I'm ready to die, I know God, I know where I'm going, I'm all right with everything, and I just went for the surgery. And there were complications. A bleed was discovered in the recovery room that had not been rectified after I'd been sewn up. And once awake, the pain was so intense that I could barely breathe. But yet, I considered myself just blessed to be alive. And the MD in charge thought that the bleed might slow down and healed itself. And it was a scant bleed somewhere on the right side of my abdomen, but it was very scant, but it was still there, and I was in immense pain. I spent the next 6 weeks dealing with all of that, and then I was told I would need to be reopened again for yet another surgery to locate and heal the bleed, which still had not healed itself. The second surgery was finally performed, and I awoke from that surgery in even more pain than the first one, no kidding. It was a moment-by-moment breathing past the pain situation for me again. It was completely horrifying. I was in the hospital for an entire week before finally being sent home again, and the pain was again so severe that I could hardly function. I called the doctor's office daily asking for help for the pain, but you know, they couldn't do anything really. They finally stopped taking my calls. This was my new normal, get used to it, deal with it, you know, you're alive, you're healthy, this cancer risk is gone, be grateful. Okay. You know, so with each month and year that passed, I prayed for relief, didn't get it, but my life was now altered, so I decided to make the best of it. After all, what were my choices? I'd prayed for a healing and never had one in all of that time. And so eventually it lessened, but my life was definitely changed. That pain in my right side was very, very sensitive. And putting on anything tight clothes or anything like that couldn't happen. Well, 12 years later in 2012, as I climbed into bed on that fateful night, little did I know that the world as I knew it was just getting ready to change forever. And so much that I had come to believe in was going to be challenged to the nth degree. My faith, everything. A miracle was on its way, a bizarre miracle, but a miracle for me nonetheless. As I slept that night, I was awakened by a gruff, unfamiliar voice that called my name. Now you might think, okay, that's really strange, he's calling her name. All I heard was Teri in this very deep, gruff voice. But my life had had many encounters hearing my name being called in the middle of the night and being awoken to all manner of different things. So to me, that was actually not so bizarre. The gruff voice frightened me. I didn't know what I was going to see when I rolled over. So I'd been woken up previously, like I said, but this was different. This was somewhat normal, like I had shared. And you never do really get used to any of that. But I had heard it clearly. And he called it out. It was kind of loud, actually. And I say he because it was in a male voice. So initially, I knew when I turned over, I wasn't going to see anything female. I was going to see something male. I wasn't expecting what I saw. However, I woke up readily and thought to myself, well, that certainly wasn't my husband's voice. You know, so what is it? And I could see my husband laying in the bed right next to me, and he was sound asleep, almost like he was in a freeze frame. You know, it's like he wasn't moving. I could hardly even hear him breathing. My eyes were open, and I was, you know, curiously wondering what I was going to see as I rolled over. And I just realized, this is really bizarre. This is really strange, Teri. I don't know what I'm going to see. So not knowing what to expect, I was immediately shocked at what I did see. And I had never seen anything like this before. Nothing like this before. I literally froze in midterm, totally freaked out, thinking I was going to see a human or something. I saw this. The one, I think I have a pointer here. Yeah, somewhere. Well, I guess I don't. Oh, it's right there. Yeah, there it is. This one, and this one, Kevin drew. And I thought, you know, I can't relay to you how weird this thing was. And this does not look exactly like it, trust me, but it's a little like it. So I took my same report to a professional. I paid dearly for that one, and that's what he came up with. Even though I didn't tell him that's what I saw. I told him it had the black and all this around the eyes. But, you know, it's almost impossible to put on paper what has never been seen, and I'm no artist, and so I kept telling people what I was seeing, but this is what came out. I was captivated, and actually I was ready to scream when I saw this thing. My mind was unable to comprehend at all what I was looking at. What is that, I thought. That investigative soul within me was so curious, it kind of was fighting my fear, you know. And even in the fear, I kept looking at it because the colors were so amazing and different. And then it was like my mind was looking at it and I was zeroing in on, you know, the neck area in here and the bodice, which I could see. He was just like nothing I'd ever seen or even heard of. I didn't want to look at the face too much because it was literally terrifying, and I was trying to work through that moment of fear. The images on the screen, like I said, are all different artist renditions, but it really is not completely what I saw. I concentrated on the body. It was so close to me. My peripheral view was trying not to lock eyes with this thing. I wanted to look up, but that, like I said, that fear, I just didn't want to. He was extremely different. How could I see so well? I kept wondering, why am I seeing this like, you know, like there's light in the room when it's dark? It was like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And it was odd how I could see it. And I thought, okay, that's really weird too. There is a light outside, you know, the truck was parked very close to the house, and we had a spotlight on the truck, which came into the room. So there was always, you know, ambient lighting in the room. But I thought, man, I can see this so well. And I do believe that when you're in the presence of extraterrestrials of any kind, they manipulate the moment. And you're going to see what you're going to see because they want you to see what you're going to see. You're pretty much at their beck and call at the moment. So I knew I was safe. I was actually getting a feeling from this being as don't panic, don't panic. He wasn't speaking with a mouth, there was no mouth, but I knew I was being controlled somehow. You know, it was just so strange seeing his black eyes and looking into, I could actually see into those eyes, which when I finally looked at it was really very frightening. I saw he had scales of red, green, black, yellow, and he was so close to me that I could see there were tiny little like hairs on the ends of the scales that were in my view. And I don't know how I was actually able to see this. Again, it was just mind-boggling to me. But the scales seemed a lot softer than they did hard. And if you'll notice on this slide, the closest thing I could find to show what the scales look like within these tiny little hairs is like on the tail of the common lobster. It was all over his body. He was a hybrid of, it seemed, something from the water. And this is very interesting. Don't forget that I just mentioned that. It was just so bizarre. His face was oddly formed with huge protruding cheeks, which was hard to show here because, you know, my husband's not a professional painter or you know, I mean, and even though the other picture that we showed, I did pay dearly for that picture, he wasn't able to show what I was telling him. But he had these big, huge jowls that came out, and then he had, around the eye, there was black in the red. It almost looked like a dried blood kind of thing, but it wasn't. It was scaly, that's what it was. And he had a very short snout, but a thicker neck. He was kind of what somebody might say thick. You know, he was thick. And he was 4 feet tall and standing next to the bed, and I'm here and he's right here. You know, that plays back in my mind all the time as I recreate this in my mind's eye. It's just really an interesting thing. He had these strange black and blood red circles around his eyes, and I couldn't figure out what all that was, but again, remember that for what I'm going to show in a little bit. And he appeared, like I said, incredibly strong. I couldn't make out any form of nostril, any form of mouth. There were no ears. And I've known from past experiences that extraterrestrials are in complete charge when you are in their presence. I did have another extraterrestrial experience, and that was of a very tall reptilian. And I think it's interesting because both of my experiences have been with reptilians. And I'm hearing all kinds of things about reptilians, and yet this wasn't something that was negative. This was, both of them were more or less positive. I don't have time to go into any of the other species that I've had experiences with, just this one today, but I was really pleased with what I came away with this, and I was able to remember it like it had happened, you know, just last night after I was, you know, writing this down. I was observing this disturbing being, and I knew it was some sort of reptilian hybrid because his head was shaped so strangely and very much lizard-like, which also doesn't look lizard-like really, but like I said, I tried to get that across. And then my eyes met his, and a shock, literally a true shock, just absolutely, it was like terror for a second, just went all through me. And it was beyond terrifying, actually. But the whole time, he never moved. He just literally stood still. And I noticed when I looked up into his eyes, he was observing me the entire time. And that's what shocked and scared me. It was like I thought he might have been just looking around or something, but right at me. And in his hand-like claw, I noticed, he had talons like a thick, large dog's claw. He held a grayish wand type instrument that was bizarre in every way. It had a firm, straight handle with a V-shaped apparatus connected on it, and it looked very much like a Y. One end had a suction-like head on it, and the other was coiled tightly on the tip like a biological fern. And you see, we found this one fern that was actually, moving because it was evolving. And that is exactly what it was doing, but it was doing it much differently. And it was so much thinner than what I could depict here, because it was longer and it was thinner, but just one end was coiled like that fern. So I gasped and was taken aback when I noticed that it was moving, because it was totally freakish, and I thought to myself, what is it? Why is it even here? What is that all about? Remember, I didn't know I was going to be healed. I had no clue what all this was about. And this wand apparatus, being living, was just so strange. But it also had tentacles like the appendages that were on a octopus. And it was very gray in color and looked very, very much like a living octopus. And see how thin that is on the end? The whole thing was thin like this. And this is also a very interesting slide because of what we find out later. He then spoke to me audibly, but through mental telepathy, he said nothing more than, "Be still." And that was mind-boggling because he didn't have a mouth, and I thought, oh, his eyes are talking to me. This is mental telepathy. And I guess somehow I had moved, and that's why he told me to be still. I don't have a recollection of moving, but that's why he was telling me to be still. And then what happened was he pointed the biological fern-like end that was coiled now very tightly all the way down, and it entered me vaginally. And I had hardly felt anything when that happened. And but in my mind's eye, I clearly saw this go in and wrap itself like very quickly around that area in my right abdomen. I was seeing it in my mind's eye, but feeling it very real. And all of a sudden, it started to get very tight. It started tightening, and it started getting warm. And I thought, what? That's warm. And I'm just laying there. The other end ended up attaching itself to the outside of my body to hold this very securely in place. And this was just terrifying, beyond terrifying, literally. I didn't know why it was happening, what was happening, what's the purpose in all of this. And I was really pretty concerned. I mean, I thought this thing, all of a sudden I started feeling this weird vibration. So now I have this strange tingling vibration. This thing is getting tighter and tighter. I'm also feeling heat. And that's another thing that I knew nothing about, but is very interesting as we go on. And it kept getting worse and worse. I mean, it just kept happening. And I laid there for a second thinking, oh my God, this thing is getting so tight, there's going to be a bloodbath in here. Whatever he's squeezing is going to blow. It was that tight, like if you were to put your hand around your own arm and just keep tightening. I mean, at some point, you can't take that anymore. And the vibration and the heat were intensifying. And I drew my hands up to my face. I remember just thinking, oh my God, I couldn't be still any longer. I drew my hands up to my face. And as I laid there, I just was in that moment thinking, oh my God, this is going to be a bloodbath. What's happening to me? And all of a sudden, the heat started lessening just a little. The vibration had increased, but the heat had lessened. And I'm just laying there now, and I don't feel this pressure quite as bad. And I'm still up there with my hands in front of my face, getting ready to scream. I couldn't take it. And then I thought, oh, okay, now that's not so bad. And the next thing I know, I open my eyes and he's gone. And I'm still feeling a vibration. I'm still feeling a little heat, no pressure at all. And, you know, I laid there and I felt like I couldn't move. I almost felt like, I don't know, you know, if any of you have had surgeries in your life, but you know when you get versed and you can't move, it's like you're just laying there. And it was almost like I'd been anesthetized and I wasn't wanting to move. I was just kind of laying there thinking, I should get up. I should get up and wake up my husband. No, I'm not going to move. I'm just going to lay here. And it was like there was some type of anesthesia that happened to me. But I also was feeling a little bit in shock. And I remember saying out loud, what the heck is this? So as I laid there feeling very anxious, very frightened, I was still in control of my faculties. I felt like I could get up, but somehow or other I wasn't getting up. My heart was pounding, my head was going through everything I had just seen. The room was now empty, there was nobody standing there anymore. And I thought, you know, what does it mean? I didn't realize at that very moment I'd been healed. So I laid there for a while. I think actually that was shock that I was experiencing. I hadn't been really shocked before by anything, so I didn't know I was experiencing shock, but I felt like I was as I look back on it now. And then as I lay there, I thought, why didn't my husband get up? You know, why didn't he wake up? And he was still just like he was in freeze frame, just laying there, you know, he didn't move a muscle the entire time. So I was laying there trying to take this all in, and then his alarm went off. So about an hour I laid there, and now his alarm is getting off so he can go to work. I was retired. And he got up, he took his shower, I heard him, I laid there, and I kept saying, get up, go tell him what happened. Get up, go tell him. And I didn't, I just laid there. And then I heard his keys go in the door, I heard him leave, I heard him lock the door, I heard him get in the truck right outside the window, start the truck up, and I thought, Teri, get up, go tell somebody what has just happened. And I thought, what am I going to tell him? I don't even know what just happened. I'm going to sound like an idiot. I just don't even know what to do with this. How do you wrap your mind around something like this? And so I laid there, and I laid there, hours actually. And then it felt like all of a sudden I could get up, like, okay, I think I can get up now. And it was like the anesthesia from that moment or that experience was kind of, working itself off. But I was still feeling the vibration. The vibration never stopped. And I got up and I walked around the house. I just started walking around the house, and I was going from room to room. And I didn't even know why I was doing that, but I walked into the other bedroom, I walked into the bathroom, I walked into the kitchen, I walked all through the house, and I thought, what am I doing? And I just wasn't thinking. I just wasn't thinking. And I thought to myself, after I sat there for a little bit, I need to talk to somebody. I need to talk to somebody. I'm still having this really weird vibration, and it's just like a hum, but it's still happening. And now it's actually driving me a little bit nuts, and I'm actually being taunted by it. I'm like, come on, enough, what the hell, how do you go through all of this? And it was bothering me. And so I thought, I need to call somebody, I need to tell somebody. I was just freaked out about it. Then I realized, oh my God, I'm not in pain. Are you kidding me? I am not in pain. And I took my fist and I went boom on my right side. I literally slapped myself very hard with my fist. And I thought, what? So now I'm just walking around going, what? And this blew my mind. Being a Christian, I didn't think anything could ever heal us but God himself. I really didn't believe in anything but prayer. So I thought to myself, why would God allow me to experience something this bizarre? That's just off the charts to me. And I couldn't wrap my mind around it. So now I'm not just walking around the house, but I'm thinking, oh my God, you know, this is challenging me from the inside out. All my faith and years of, you know, being a Christian, I don't understand this. So after a few hours of constant wondering, I called one of my friends in MUFON, Kathy Marden. She just lived down the road from me and is a very good friend and was at the time. I called her and I shared with her everything that I had experienced. She was not shocked, and I thought she would be. She had heard about other things like this. I had never heard that aliens could heal. That was my first experience with alien healing, was my very own. And then she started sharing with me how many people get healed by extraterrestrials. And I thought, you're kidding me. This is too bizarre. You know, this is fringe, way fringe. And so I said to her, oh my gosh, and she mentioned Denise Stoner, who was also a very good friend of mine in MUFON. I was an assistant state director at the time, and they were on the ERT together, and Denise was a very good friend of mine. And she said, call Denise, I want Denise in on this, you know, call Denise and talk to her about it. And I said, I will. So I called Denise, and again, Denise said, yes, you know, this is all true, Teri. Many people have experienced alien healing. And I'm like, yeah, but from a reptilian 4-foot hybrid, you know, I mean, come on, this was just crazy. So she said to me, have you taken a DNA sample? Now, I'm a certified field investigator. I'm an assistant state director. I know to do this, but I wasn't thinking. I was just walking around the house in shock and freaking out about the healing. And so I said, no, I didn't. And she said, Teri, go get a swab and get a swab internally, put it in a plastic bag, throw it in the freezer. So I said, okay. And I went and I got a swab. I can't believe I did this, but I wasn't thinking clearly. Instead of getting 2 or 3, I get 1. And I put it in the baggie and threw it in the freezer like she showed me to. So I spoke to her for a good hour, Kathy, a good hour, and I said, okay, you know, I'm really concerned. I'm still having this vibration. Have you heard of that? And she said, no, I hadn't heard about the vibration. And I said, well, I'm having it and I don't understand what it's all about. So once I had gotten that DNA swab, I think we were looking at maybe 6 hours now had passed, and I still have this going on. And I thanked them both for talking to me, walking me through it. I thanked Denise for giving me the information to get the swab so I would have some DNA. And, you know, it's so funny. She said, get a swab, and that's all I got. I still. So anyway, I then asked Denise if there was a lab that maybe she knew of I could send it to. I had thought we had heard of something up here in Philadelphia. She said, well, no, that it's kind of defunct right now, so just keep it, you know, in your freezer until we need it. And so I did exactly what she said. I threw it in the freezer. And later on that day, I actually took a shower, and I was so freaked out that even after the shower and having very hot, warm water on me, the vibration was still there. And I called Kathy back and I said, look, Kathy, I'm going to the hospital. I'm gonna have to run up here to St. Anthony's and tell somebody something is going on. And I said, this vibration is literally maddening at this point. It's driving me a little bit crazy and I'm really concerned about it. You know, what do I have to live with this now? And so Kathy goes, oh, really? Teri, you're gonna go to the hospital? What are you gonna tell them? And I went, yeah, what am I going to tell them? And it's like none of my thinking that day was on target. I was so completely freaked out by the whole experience. She said, are you going to tell them that an alien came in your room? You know, and I'm like, yeah, you know, I guess I'm not going to say anything. I said, but what do I do? And she said, well, she said, go through tonight, you know, Let me know in the morning how you're doing. And it was just 2 hours after that phone call to Kathy, just like that, the vibration stopped. And I mean, it stopped completely. I didn't have anything at all to deal with now with this, other than the fact that I was completely healed, you know, and I was calling everybody I knew to tell them, oh my gosh, this is gone, you know. And we talked about it. So for 9 hours that day, the vibration had stayed. And I don't really know why all of that happened, but Kathy and Denise were both, you know, so completely supportive, and I want to just say how the ERT with MUFON, when you're going through something that is so frightening, so mind-boggling, something that you are really disturbed about, they are there to help you, and they did help me. I mean, without them, I don't really know how I would have gotten through all that. I probably would have gone to the hospital and made an absolute fool of myself. But anyway, so the swab that I had thrown in my freezer stayed there for 7 years. So then in 2018, I was contacted by another fellow friend of mine, a board director, Debbie Ziegelmeyer. And she had said to me, hey, Teri, have you still got that swab that you were talking about? And I said, yeah, it's in the freezer. I haven't touched it, never opened it, never even looked at it. Pretty much forgot about it, you know. And she told me that there is now a lab in MUFON in Missouri that I could send that swab to for examination. And I was just absolutely tickled. I said, oh my gosh, that's awesome. So I told her, okay, let me do that. So I went ahead and got it and contacted the lab. So in 2019, I had contacted the chief analyst there, Lynge, and she sent me all the criteria and equipment that I would need to properly send her my swab using all the different sterilization protocols that are required for submitting DNA for evaluation. And following her very strict protocols, which was very important, I sent it off to her. And 1 month later, on September 18th, she called me with some amazing results. And again, I didn't know if anything would come from it, but I just thought if I can help humanity, I'm sending this crazy swab, you know. So Lynn stated that there are a lot of red blood cells as if you'd been injured. And she said, had you been injured? And I said, well, no. I mean, I just went to bed that night, you know, like I was fine, you know. But she said it's so red cell heavy. She said, did the pressure cause the injury, do you think? And I thought, well, I don't know. The pressure was extreme, but I don't know if it had. So we wondered about that. She advised me on the proteins on the swab that they were off the charts. And I said, really? Even after 7 years? And she said, this is bizarre. And she said, I've gotten a couple other fellows together. We've looked at this. We've been talking about this. And she asked me, would you mind if I cut this into a couple different samples so that instead of using the whole swab, we can just use little bits of this swab to do some more DNA testing on it? And I said, no, go ahead. So she sent me all the paperwork to sign for doing that legally. And she explained that because we don't have any alien DNA on file, she would begin searching for any form of DNA that would match what was on the swab. She said, there are 2 specific signatures on this swab. And I said, really? And she said, yes. According to what you sent me, I had to do a spit thing, you know, and send her my DNA so that she could compare it with what was on the swab. She said, yours is on there, but there's a very clear second DNA on this swab. So on September 28th of that year, she asked me if she could do the further testing. And she said that she would try to take as small a section off that swab so that we could use it yet again. Lynn promised to work as fast as she could to get the outcome, and she didn't want to damage any of the testing. I agreed to it you know, I was just happy. There's a little bug here. I was happy to have sent it to her and have this even happening. So she called me back after that one because she said, you definitely have a notable DNA on here, and I've been calling everywhere to find out what this was. And she had said that it was on October 12th of 2019. She called me and said, are you sitting down? She said, what I have found is absolutely amazing. I was actually at a MUFON meeting in Lakeland, Florida, and I had just ended my presentation that day. And she said, are you sitting down? And I said, no, but I can be. And my husband, Kevin, was with me, and I said, can I put my cell phone on speaker so my husband can hear what you have to share with me? And she said, yes. She said, we have discovered that you've got a match on that DNA. We finally have a match. And I said, a match? What is it? You know, I'm thinking, my God, this is unbelievable. And she said, it's a lizard DNA. And I said, I'm so excited. And, you know, Kevin and I are just looking at each other going, are you for real? Look at this. And she said it's a giant tegu lizard. Now, what is to be noted here is that this thing has those huge jowls, just like mine did. And this is 7 years after the fact, you know. She went on to say that the lizard in South America, of all places, was the complete match. It was specifically this tegu lizard, and I started really feeling elated because that there was something finally identified. And I now had some form of results. So here are some of the images that she did in the DNA testing that took place in the MUFON lab in Missouri. Figure 1 and 2 are the red cell count was consistent with a minor amount of blood. That's up here. The red blood cells being present at the sampled area. There were also some cells consistent with the area or swabbing being at some point in the presence of pond water. I think that's very interesting. Figures 3 and 4 down here are the cells from that pond water. And she said that she knew that it was sterilely packed because we did it on the kitchen counter, so there was no pond water possible. There were also bacteria present, which she said is never unusual when you get something like that. And this is the email I received from Lynge notifying me of the preliminary tests that resulted in inquiring about using the remainder of the DNA swab, which I shared with Kathy Martin. And this slide is a photographic representation of the e-gel electrophoresis results of the DNA present on the swab sample and saliva sample that I had supplied to her with signed permission as per laboratory protocol. The DNA ladder position refers to the base pair position on which the STR used as a marker resides on the human genome. This machine, the UV light on it, is a QuickGene Mini 80. It uses microfiltered holders that separate out the DNA through their specifically designed filters using various reagents as a vacuum system. And these are the test results comparing different lizard and reptilian species on the top line. And you'll notice here that, well, I don't know how good you can see this, but right here, the tegu was the match. And then this one shows the DNA and mine all together on that slide. And this is an image of the gel of tegu and human comparison. And here's the title of the tegu paper report that she released to the her fellows. This actually went in as a, oh gosh, I forget, I'm having a brain fart. what they call that, the papers that they do. It was a possible DNA evolutionary relative of the humanoid reptilian. So how is that for a captivating headline? And a possible wake-up call to make all of us question everything we always thought we knew. The implications of such a reality are far-reaching and could possibly rewrite history as we know it. And following is the conclusion of the lab's report at the beginning of the testing of the trace material for the forensic report done in this laboratory for MUFON of Missouri. The intention was to test the DNA present and file a report with the witness and the headquarters of MUFON as per usual. Having found the witness DNA on the sample swab and lacking access to any alien DNA should it exist, I for the first time began to research what reptilian present on this planet might be close to having any part of its genome similar to humanoid. This is being written by Lynge. What I found was the giant tegu salvator marianae. The resulting match to human and lizard DNA on the trace swab was a wonderful revelation to the analyst and the witness. Never before, to our knowledge, has a trace sample matched a set of witness accounts as well as this does, even with the apparent lesser signal seen on the lizard's gel. The potential for this study to be repeated with success on further samples of this type is very high. It is for this reason the witness and study partners involved feel that this result should be published. Once I looked up the tegu lizard online, I was shocked to see the resemblance of the extraterrestrial that actually appeared in my room that night. The face was shorter, and I kept saying the snout wasn't long, but it looked more like a dog to me when we were trying to draw it. And I kept trying to say, well, no, it's a little thinner, but it had all this stuff on it. And I didn't see the mouth, but the mouth could have been there. It's just he didn't use it. He used mental telepathy. And then the eyes with the dark circles around them. And it all made sense. It all made sense to me for the first time ever, and everything that I had gone through and I had described was right before my eyes. And I'm telling you, because it's so out there, it's so fringe, it's so different, this was so comforting to me. It's, I think a lot of people think we make these things up, but I certainly didn't. I'm no idiot. I certainly wouldn't have wanted to bore anybody with a fake story. So anyway, it occurred to me then this was no coincidence, and this is just exactly what had happened. And it was a few years later when I collected my thoughts. I wrote a small, quick book to inform the American public and all humanity that was a wand that was actually used by this being that evening. So that's technology that we don't currently understand or possess. And should I say we are not yet aware of. Maybe we do have it, but we, the public, aren't aware of it. So I was no longer in pain. I was happy about that. And then in 2021, as I was scrolling through Facebook one day, I came upon a remarkable post. It was new information about the healing properties and regeneration capabilities in the tentacles of the octopuses. I cried when I read that. It was like validation. I get goosebumps just talking about this stuff. It was like, oh my God. This happened all those years ago, and I shared it. I looked like an idiot in front of everybody, and here it is. Now, it's a fact, So interestingly enough, an octopus is capable of self-regeneration if it should lose a tentacle, just like lizards can also regrow their lost tails. Science is now looking to regrow cartilage in humans, and octopus regeneration is at the forefront. And now, what just came out as a mainstream news, did a whistleblower from the government just announce to the world that aliens are real, and they have bodies. Yeah, and as I read earlier in the conclusion of Lynn Mann's report of my DNA swab analysis, she stated, having found the witness's DNA on the sample swab and lacking access to any DNA itself, should it exist. Now we know, yes, it does exist. And I contend that we do, in fact, have many different types of alien DNA on file, and that the only reason it's not common knowledge is that they, or the powers that be won't allow it. Who knows what new whistleblower will come up with next and what truth will arise. And so in conclusion, the concept of alien healing presents fascinating capabilities, and there's evidence to suggest that it is actually a reality for the future of human health and humanity as a whole. While we might not have all the answers, there's still much we do not know about extraterrestrial life. I urge you to keep an open mind and consider the possibility that there is more to the universe than we currently understand, and that the idea that beings from other planets or even within the Earth are possible. Obviously possessed advanced healing capabilities in certain intriguing ways, and conversation, to say the least. So how could we really, say that it's not happening? And I did put a little book together so that people could read that. I've pulled it off since I have new DNA information that I am going to put in the book. So it right now is not available, but it'll look exactly like that. It'll be the same thing that I'll put back up once I get all my new DNA and everything in there for people to take a look at. It's just simply Teri Lynge Kehl, Alien Healing, the true story of a benevolent extraterrestrial. And it is something that happened that was done in kindness. So I do know that there are a lot of things going on with extraterrestrials, and especially reptilians. People think they're demons, and I'm not saying they're not. I'm saying that what happened to me, I don't have all the answers. This one was a good one. And it's quite interesting. So I want to thank you all for allowing me to share this very personal and life-changing experience with you today. Please know, truth is so much stranger than fiction. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your time here. Thank you.